Alright, I don't know if I can be heard or not. Oh, so I'll wait for some people to come in here. If anyone wants to show up, that is. Yeah, discarded. It was very moist. We had a user who was getting turned on and aroused by somebody else, I guess. No, I'm trying a different, I guess, piece of technology this time around, so I don't have to hold it. And, I mean, this thing can go on forever if I don't have to strain myself. No, I allowed that because I genuinely like the idea of people being able to speak about something. And it wasn't, even though it was over the top, it wasn't to the point where I thought it was. I mean, after a while, they know they're not, you can't take them seriously. It's too goofy. Maybe I'm very apologetic for the name calling and the slander that was applied toward myself and many of the other participants. Um, I can only top of the morning. Yeah, I was just sitting there apologizing for all those users being insulted. You were one of the few ones he didn't go after, Envoy. I was satisfied with that. I was appeased. And it's actually the afternoon, so that's an inaccurate statement. Just want to point that out. Discarded says it was awesome, yo. Like I wouldn't trip, you roast them, ha ha ha. Always says just want attention, like a sunflower that hasn't been watered. Oh, here we go again. Yeah, that's about right, Envoy. I'm agreeing with that point of yours. I refuse to believe that people who have attained so much success are going to sit in comment sections online, trying to grandstand and preach ideas and all that nonsense. Imagine having Trump or someone else of high stature join your YouTube comment section. Oh, I'm so successful. Let me come in here. Oh, some music. Brian says he found who found this. I mean, I didn't try to hide it. Yeah, you go from a romantic guru to a sexual tomcat to a changed man. Yeah, to a reformed individual, all in the span of what, 2 hours? A little bit over an hour. Tavin's eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. I'm not retreating for anything. Like I said, if anyone gets out of control, we can, like that. It's dark because I made it dark. It sucks because while I generally like being on camera, one of the things I've started noticing is that people call themselves playing, internet doctors. They go and say, "Oh, this looks nasty. Why do you have that in the background?" So I just said, "Forget it." Always says, "I feel like Tevin has gone to a church and the pastor holding a Bible has blessed him." Yeah. Well, he needed that reform a little bit earlier on, if you get what I'm saying, because that was absolutely ridiculous what he did earlier. I mean, one of the things I've tried to show with my subscribers is that I am appreciative of those who come in there, at least hear out what I have to say, and then maybe they can say what their own thing is, um, and it goes from there. But if you're going to have people who come in there talking about you suck at life because you can't do this one thing, when in reality most of us, if we looked at our own lives and evaluated what was important versus trying to get someone to be with you, we would say we were successes. How would you feel if for example, Envoy, your son says, you know what, Dad, I may have graduated from high school and I may have had this, nice job that paid me well and I've been able to provide for my family, my parents, but because I never got with a woman, oh man, life just wasn't worth living. It was so terrible. The whole world is awful. And it's kind of ironic because the people who are in favor of that mindset are the same ones who call themselves preaching against you having that mindset. You had this commenter a while back who was trying to defend the behaviors of women, and I said to him, don't come to me and tell me that, it's somehow not a big deal to be with one, because if it wasn't, you wouldn't be on this video trying to defend them. I mean, I can never comprehend how they can't get that. Uh, okay, let me read this. Envoy says earlier that some men base their entire life on women. I mean, their entire life. Yeah, that's what it feels like. Going online and telling people they suck because they're not able to get with someone seems to be their purpose. Their entire existence revolves around how much can I, uh, you know, aggravate someone that is having a tougher time with something I'm doing. I never understood that mindset, because there are things I know that other people don't. I don't go around trying to make them feel bad for not knowing them. How would you like it if I went into your stream talking about, well, you know what? You might be good at this one thing, but I bet you can't draw as good as me. You would hate that. You would say that is such a jerk. Who would go around preaching how great he is in this one field and acting like everybody else is trash and dirt because they don't have the same feeling or same level of experience in that one particular field? No one else would back that kind of that ideology. So it's really strange. Wait for somebody else to say something, you guys get all quiet out of nowhere. That'll be the strangest thing when you have like 20 people in the stream and then only 2 or 3 of them are talking. Let's see here. Please don't act like we can get a little free proof worthy or all true. I don't know what his aim is what I'm trying to convey here, discarded, because you go from uh, I'm going to try and insult everyone to, oh no, I'm reformed and my eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. So I don't comprehend. Let me say hello to the music fiend. Give him a proper greeting. A roundhouse way of interacting with him. Yeah, this is a generally more preferable format because um, being enabled to do multiple things at once, which when you have a set of things you want done, is I think most of you could comprehend where that would be more appealing than sitting in front of the camera. Just so I can have people tell me how ugly I am. It's not ideal. Okay, Envoy says we all must walk together, walk the higher path, guided by a shepherd, Moses. Uh, the Scarlet says he can play the game he's playing, but it doesn't do his reputation any credit. I don't get the aim of doing that because you're not. I mean, did you ask me? Did he really think he was going to change my mind or that of anybody else who he called himself insulting? The only thing he did was really make me feel sorry for VVS's child because that kid was told you don't exist by this man. I thought that was a very mean thing to do. Attack this kid over, you're not liking what his daddy had to say. It's insane. So there's just a load of characteristics I can't wrap my head around. But yeah, the worst part was doing that stream earlier and having it basically rendered null and void by those sound issues, and that was the direct result of all those phone calls. I don't think I've ever been called that many times during one stream. And the worst part is you can't even find yourself getting mad at the people who messed that up because they had no way of knowing that you were, in the middle of that. Although this is why I've tried to tell people, hey, let's schedule a call at this point or another. And so when they do those random, telephone things, it just feels weird. I've come to accept the idea that we're going to eventually segue into a state where I don't put up with it. Because I'm saying here I can't blame this person for this, for that. It will get to a point where I don't condone the differences I've tried to accept when it comes to behaviors. So, for example, instead of saying, "Oh, this person's okay," because I had no idea they would do this thing that ended up happening, I'm going to go, "Oh, well, you know what? Screw this because you don't exactly, my way or the highway doctrine." It's getting very old, discarded ink. Very, very old. It's like when you open up, when you have a cabinet and you shove a bunch of stuff in there, then you come back and you find you had something there from 3 or 4 years ago that just you never got to because it was pushed all the way in the back. That's how it is. So eventually you're going to find that and you're going to say, "Oh, this is nasty. How did this ever end up sticking around for as long as it did?" And then you'll say it was very old. And what's slightly more disturbing, let me see if I can find what was written here. It's terrible. Ask if a big YouTuber like PewDiePie gave you a shout out and you gained 1 million subscribers, would you change the content you produce? It would have to do with what I think the subs are there for. If you're here to hear me talk about romantic stuff, I would probably. I mean, I'm already speaking more actively about that because I've recognized the bigger turnout you get with addressing those things than you would with something political, but it still is where I'm kind of struggling with whether or not I want it to go in that direction. And I'm also being more consistently annoyed by people, not just and trying to seek out romance, but also in interactions you might have happening. So it's a little bit of both. I don't know why that man would give me a shout out. We remember what he said about that one supposed African American he was playing that game with. And someone like that gets backlash for maybe 2 seconds, and then. And look, I'm not saying he should have just lost everything. I don't believe in you say one thing and then everything's over now. But which is what was done yesterday, actually. But you have to say to yourself, do you really think this person was? I mean, like if you get me in some circumstance I don't like, I'm not going to call someone a racial slur of any ethnicity group because I don't use those. So I don't know why he said that. It was strange. I don't know if they answered It's Terrible T's question or if he's still in the dark and doesn't understand what I'm saying. It's like, what are you talking about? I don't even know if Terrible T is still here. He probably retreated. People like to do that. They go in there, they ask a question or say something, and run out. Uh, Discarded Ink says, we each how okay, we each how to do our own things and PewDiePie changed his content anyway. He's hardly any fun anymore now. It doesn't now that he only does memes. Like, where are all the games? I just picture Discarded Ink throwing his arms up and going, where are all the games? Terrible T says, I heard you. Envoy says, but just I have tasted the sweet nectar of the fruits from the Garden of Eden, and by God I am redeemed. No, I do not support any basketball team. I had no idea this was going to turn into a Q&A. I saw you got angry, what was it, I think 2 days ago? I didn't answer some question you left me, and I tried explaining that with the way the YouTube system is set up, if I don't see it the first time around, it will disappear within seconds of being sent. So I have to go and look for it and dig, and it ended up being the circumstance. You were very heated. You said, how dare he not answer my contact? Okay, Discarded says, I'm not telling you to change your content or anything, but if you were to start playing video games, I didn't, but you have to do commentary too, otherwise it'd be pointless. Yeah, I don't know what's fun about just watching someone play a game. You guys will. I like how people will just bring their interest over here. I've never made a single stream or video about what do you call it? Anything having to do with sports, and then all of a sudden somebody will come in there and talk about it. And when you talk about something I'm not, following actively or really into at all, I'm just warning you. You're going to see a higher, chance of me saying okay while you're speaking because I don't have anything to say. I'm not familiar with that. Um, I like to think I know most things in certain fields, but I'm not going to subjugate you to the false impression that I have any intellect when it comes to that. Let's see here. Any other comment? Nope. I don't know. I just have to do certain titles to get people to start checking out. I don't like doing it either because it feels so like when I did the one about they could never understand it's ambiguous enough to make people go I wonder what this is. Discarded Ink says it's relaxed. I don't have a PC. That's an interesting question. Other people like watching play games. But I like listening to your opinion on politics and whatnot. So I don't know. Um, yeah, I don't. What I've tried to do here is, you know, I would think fairly simple. It's talking about things that are of interest to me, and if you like that, you go over and watch it. You don't go watch something else. And what's even stranger is that a lot of times we do these live streams, you have people who will say something that kind of sends me in one direction to another. And I've had, in a couple of cases, users complain about that. I say to them, you put that title before you actually record the stream. So
I think you should be able to guess that it wasn't me intending for it to end up that way, but that was the title of what it was supposed to be about. It just kind of went from one thing to another.
So that was really sad to me because I don't like to have those kind of issues with subs or whatever. So I've really tried to keep it a little bit diverse, but I'm fully aware of the fact that a lot more will turn in or tune in to discussions on matters having to do with the current dichotomy of romances. And I do find interesting that I've noticed a um, change in much of my contact where you have people who will, make the claim that this is supposedly my, refusal to just go and be consistent on things, but it really has evolved from me just complaining about romances to complaining about interactions in general, because now you have people um, that are are not romantically involved with me who are just still annoying me, and it's something I didn't really have, or I guess I kind of, because I always had people that were just aggravating, but in being in school with them, you could always sort of segmented, and it became easier to be away from that many people that bothered you. And now I don't have as many. But even now, when I have someone I choose to talk with, kind of flip on me or start acting the way I don't like, it's just I'd rather not. So I've noticed that where it's gone from just talking about stuff with romance to stuff with people in general. I told you about this thing with this voice actor who decided to sit on the script for a half a year because I was upset by the fact that I trusted this person to get work as I would do anybody else, regardless of gender. And it come on my profile to assist with this, and all of a sudden they just refuse to move along with it. Now ask yourself that: is it right to say? It's one thing if I come up to you and I go, "Hey, you my thing." This person comes to my content and says, "I want to work on this." They get it, and then they sit on it, and they get to a point where they can't even send you a message about why they're doing this, what their motive is. If I didn't just say, okay, forget you, let me get somebody else, I would just been sitting there waiting for that person for who knows how long. Okay, Discarded Ink says, I'd watch you do any videos so far you have a sound opinion. Uh, Envoy says, that's a sad state of affairs. I don't know what you mean by that. Discarded Ink says, but I really mean like it would be interesting not to see that you change content, but to do both because I don't want to see less content. Like, I don't think it's just a fan thing. Well, I've my thing is I'm willing to do whatever I can with the times I have. If I get to a point, as many people do, where they don't have the amount of time, I will forego having to do certain things if I'm able to generate the same amount of profit from those things. For example, one of the reasons I don't talk much about, oh, let's set up a Patreon or some other thing to get paid off is because I know that I have a very small group of people that actually consistently watch any of my stuff. And when it comes to even a dollar, people just will not pull out their pocket for something online. So I'm reluctant to even start that. But that's ideally where it would come from if I started doing lengthy or just extensive projects. Like even with this screenshot uh, video I keep talking about, that's going to take uh, if I don't run into technical difficulties, some time to write and some time to edit. And if I can do that, it will come out, but it will come out eventually. It's just being allowed the time and the lack of writer's block to get it put out, if that makes sense. So there's a lot of stuff that can just be done. I just hate the fact that
I have to almost sit there and accept this idea that if struggle with something, you're not supposed to talk about it. You're supposed to just let it rub off your shoulder. And look, when we don't discuss things, we open ourselves up to the possibility of having assumptions be made, and those assumptions can either really hurt the person they're about, or they can serve to put at ease the thoughts of the person who is thinking them. And this is why you have people who sit here and say that someone must be of a different orientation if they don't get with a partner who's of the other sex. Envoy says, yeah, you're supposed to keep it balled up. And yeah, well, my thing has always been I did. I let it sit there. I let it not be discussed. And save for maybe two or three people, I never talked about any of this stuff. And what's happened here is that I've gotten to a point where I said, you know what, not talking about this has made it better. Not focusing on it has made it better. Pretending that it doesn't bother you has made it better. So what else do you have to lose? I mean, imagine seeing every negative outcome from a choice that people stipulated to you about what you should do, and then you flip with the reverse, and people are still telling you the same thing. It's like if I tell Envoy, "You better not eat that candy bar, man, or else you're gonna get cavities." And then Envoy says, "All right, I won't eat any candy bars," and then he goes and eats, I don't know, some whipped cream by itself, and he gets cavities. Yeah, man, that's what happens when you eat that whipped cream. But you were the same person who's telling me to not eat the other thing. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you do both of them. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. And that's a much less narrower path than what I just described, because in a lot of circumstances, I've actually sat here with people I know in person, and they'll be upset about the same things. And it's not just the fact that you have the problem going on, but the reaction to it by other people almost feels insane to you, because you say to yourself, I'm having a problem with a group of people who are all doing the same thing, who are all acting the same way, and I employ all these different strategies. They tell me I'm not interested, and that would means that I deserve to be shamed and punished for a choice they made. Who's to say when I went up to them, I didn't, smile up in their face and make jokes and have them laughing and giggling, which is what happened with a couple of them. I know people won't believe me that call themselves doubting my claims, but um, it's just to say that you get to a point where you get sick of it, you get tired. It's why we have people who kill themselves. It's why we have people who opt to just end it all. They're frustrated and they're disillusioned with the continued stagnation they either feel in their own life or in the lives of those around them. So it all goes hand in hand. Discarded Ink says, I feel what you're saying. Envoy says supposed to keep it bottled in. Apparently, I think I responded to him one more time before that. So that might have just been a repeat response. Music Fiend says stagnation is the word of the day. I disagree. I think it's the word of the decade, because what you've started noticing is that the reason, and I truly believe it's the reason the people are not willing to talk to each other, is because they don't want to concede certain things. Like, for example, I had a guy who told me that my opinion on a movie meant that I had a mental deficit. Now, I'm not going to say what film it is, but you'll probably be able to guess with some coming installments. But think about this. This one film by itself is, you can't have a legitimate reason for disliking. It's effectively what he was saying. And I thought that was the dumbest thing in the world, to tell someone you can't just not like this movie. There has to be some kind of mental issue with. Well, we're going to go over. I'm going to have something making fun of that later on, but you get the idea that this movie. And look, the movie I'm talking about was not. It's not like it's Citizen Kane or anything. It's a film that is very polarizing. That people have, for whatever reason, liked it. People, for other reasons that I find well grounded, have disliked it. It's relatively recent as well. Um, so when he was sitting over here and was saying that I had this problem for not liking this movie, I told him later on, this is something that you did that pissed me off. I said, hey, it would have been so simple for you because I have with my best friend, for example, we don't agree on some things, mostly having to do with shows and media. And in disagreeing on those things, we don't sit there and argue about it and tell the other person they have a mental deficit because they don't like the protagonist of this show or whatever. We accept it. And I both listed characters we didn't like in programs, and that was it. We went on to talk about something else. Because I didn't feel the need to be so hostile toward them having a separate opinion with me on a form of media. So what I'm trying to convey to you is that the proper way for this person to have accepted I didn't like that film would have just been for him to go, you know what? You don't like this movie. I like it. Whatever. That's literally what was done with other people who I met. Actually, kind of funny. Everybody else I know, I like this little group of 5 or 3 guys that I knew and was talking to regularly hated the movie. And all of us except for him. He was just the odd man out. And none of the rest of them talked to him, but you get the idea. But it's stuff like that. It turns me off from talking and attempting to have personal and recurring dialogue to people because if you're going to show such hostility toward you know your toward a view or perspective someone has, then why should I bother with you? Why should I deal with you on any actual personal level where it's optional to talk to? And this was the same behavior he had with. To give you another one of his little quirks that made me not want to bother with him. Most of us, be it someone we know or some historical figure, um, will celebrate the anniversary of their birth. Martin Luther King Day is framed around celebrating the anniversary of MLK's birth. Um, when JFK turned 100 last year and 101 yesterday, the last year anyway, the JFK Library made a whole big deal out of it. Oh, it's JFK 100. Oh, his centennial. This person literally said it was dumb to remember a person on their birthday because they're no longer alive. He literally became the only person I know, male or female, to have opposition to remembering a person on the anniversary of their birth. He said he could, get the consensus for remembering an anniversary of an event, but not a birth. So that was another. Okay, Music Fiend, your comment got held back because of forward. I thought it was really dumb. I've literally never met anyone who was opposed to remembering someone on the anniversary of their birth because they weren't alive anymore. It doesn't matter. I'm trying to think another little quirk he had where he was saying that the way to combat racism was to have. So here's another thing he did. This is a person who is actually no. I'm trying to think of something else because that one is. I'm telling you, if you hear it, you'll find yourself just lose your mind. No, Music Fiend. He wasn't crapping on anybody. What he was saying was that you cannot remember a person specifically because it's their birthday. So, for example, let's pretend God forbid, Music Fiend dies next year, and then 10 years later it's his 30th, 40th birthday. He says in his opinion it would be stupid to say, oh man, remember when Music Fiend used to go on my stuff and comment and actually try to interact with me? It would be in his opinion dumb to invest any time in remembering you on what would have been your birthday because you're not alive for it. And I'm telling you, I doesn't matter their ideology, doesn't matter if they're male or female. I've literally never seen anyone else express opposition to noting the anniversary when someone was born. Yeah, discarded ink. I don't even want to get into that stuff right now because you already know when you start talking about issues that are internal to the community, they lose their minds. So I'd rather not go into it. I mean, they won't even hear it out. It's just how dare you? Um, where it's like watching just retards on ice sometimes. I really think that my preferred version of reality would just be to go and have some position somewhere, do a stream here or there, and just be alone because save for a few people who don't give me any trouble whatsoever. Even they have those little scheduling conflicts, okay, whatever. But the fact that you have people who are um, able to appease you in um, ways that are, satisfactory, and then you have these other individuals that just cause you all these headaches just by talking to them. It makes you not want to deal with the other ones. You say to yourself, well, if I can get so much satisfaction from just speaking with this one person, and it's a reverse. I mean, this guy would go from, I'm not going to say anything over the phone, which is just, it's like you just talking to yourself because he's typing on his computer, to arguing back and forth. And I mean, to give you another example of how incredulous all this is, I described a story to him that a person did. I put it like that: a person did. Now, a lot of us, when I say a person did, are going to assume or think something, but most of us would be smart enough to just assume or think something. I don't have a window into your soul, so I would know. Because later on, well, your family, was doing it. I said, wait a second, I never told you anything about my family. You said, people that were around you. So wait a second. That still doesn't mean my family. Well, statistically, most of us live with our family members, so we can conclude that was people you were talking about. Wait, hey, how are you going to tell me who I'm talking about? Again, things like that, where even if you thought you assumed who I was talking about, if I said, oh, this person did this, you wouldn't go up to me and start arguing back and forth about how this is most likely this because of this poll. That's like if I went up to, I don't know, a person who is African American that's, like 10 or whatever, and I go, hey, were your parents married when you were born? And then they go, no, yeah, why are you asking? Well, statistically, seven out of 10 children that are African American are out of wedlock. What the hell is the biggest jerk in the world? I can assume, I can think, I can wonder, but to sit there and go back and forth with the person over a statistic isn't even. It's just I can't understand it. Now you guys are going into all this stuff. You guys are having this full dialogue. I'm talking to myself. This is now the stream of reform and all the other policies. And I already told you, man. Whenever I get to talking about that stuff, it's almost completely what do you call it? Crapped on. So I was just trying to say, tell you what all this stuff was, why interactions like that have contributed to me not wanting to have these talks and discussions. Again, if you guys want to have your discussion about the ongoing problems they're experiencing, I welcome it somewhere else. It's an act I'd rather not see you guys partake in because one of the things I thought the channel was doing well was interacting with the individuals that were involved with it with regularity. So to have you guys go back and forth about that stuff is not exactly ideal, if you catch my drift. It's far from a desirable circumstance. Yeah, maybe I'm the crazy one who just needs to accept that people turn the chat in there. Sorry to sidetrack.
No, I don't have a problem with discussing these other things. It's just when I'm trying to make a point about my frame of mind over how things are now. I wanted to at least be acknowledged by the few people that are sitting here speaking. And again, that's what I've tried to do when I get asked all these questions and have the virtual press conferences where people are asking, how tall are you? What is your blood type? Wow, where did what is this? And it feels like most people who do that aren't even seeing it come in here more than once. They come in here inquiring and then they run out. They say something that throws me off, as I mentioned with that one stream where that person came in there talking about how will discussing this help you or something. So all of it is, you know, yeah. I've tried to accept the fact that many people who are calling themselves, backers or supporters are just here to make drama and discuss other things. Strong disagreement. I'm not familiar enough with his views to give an opinion on them. Again, some of these figures, I just don't spend time actively looking up or trying to understand. If anybody else can think of something they want to ask, because I'm pretty much out of it at this point. You guys are having a whole back and forth. If CP says, "Well, you may see me in here at random times because I'm working online listening to stream." Uh, Discarded Ink says, "But I was interested in what you were saying, though. I'm sure." Yeah, no, I was just trying to convey that one of the problems that's going on is that you have people who are not willing to accept differences. And when I was talking about these few individuals I get along with fine, I pointed out that oftentimes we know what we don't both agree on, so we actively try to avoid talking about it. Just like after this guy told me that I supposedly had a mental defect from not liking this movie, I went out of my way not to talk about that film. Um, and then he found himself regressing and mentioning. I literally crossed the name of this film off of things I could talk about with this person. Um, I didn't want to be triggered by discussing that topic. But he brought it up, started all over again. Started hanging up when I had a guy who got on the phone and said, "Yeah, this movie sucks." I mean, again, I intend to mock fun of that later on. Okay, the music fans, do you believe the low attention span of most people nowadays is a result of rampant commercialism? No, I just think the low attention span is the direct result of people not being incentivized to care about things. You have a lot of people who will get all antsy about presidential elections, and then they don't even know who their own governor is, or much less representative, or rather, they don't know who their own representative is, much less governor. And they call themselves being active and savvy to um, current circumstances. Oh, I'm on CNN and they're talking about this one topic, but there are local issues that I think if most of us paid attention to in our own communities, they wouldn't have the same problems. The music fiend says, "I regularly talk to Jehovah's Witnesses, and I'm an atheist. I love discussing differences in opinion." No, when I was getting asked about religion and talking about that with people, I had no problem because me and religion have had our various disagreements, and based off of some things that have happened personally, me and the Fables don't get along that often.
but I've still tried to accept the fact that other people believe in stuff more than me. And so when I have individuals trying to make it seem as if, I'm casting dispersions, it's just not true. What happened to the mic? Oh, Dirk, I'm on a different device. Maybe that's the reason. Can you hear me? If you can, I don't know. Maybe I'll start the stream again. Uh, okay, CP says, I get rid of friends that would say I have a mental defect because of an opinion on a movie. It's funny. This is a person who literally, in the discussion we had after, I think we had maybe 2 calls following them doing that thing about this film. And they went out of their way to say, "Oh, I'd be so disappointed if you didn't talk to me anymore, and I'd be disillusioned, and yada yada yada." But they found themselves less than 2 months later slipping back into talking about this film. And I said, "Look, if you know that you and I don't agree on this film, and you can't tolerate, because again, if you weren't saying someone has a mental deficit uh, over not liking this film, I would accept the fact that you like the movie. I couldn't care less." But it disturbs me you care that much. I mean, this guy got to a point where he was talking about, we have to admit seeing that movie was good. No, I don't have to admit anything. I didn't like it. And then starts talking about because it didn't come out at some time it was. So apparently, if I had seen this film at a young age, I would have. What does that have to do with the quality of the movie? Why is it the fault of things that weren't the film itself that are problematic to you? And I'm bringing this up because this person had all these little strange ticks and tacks that I really wanted to just write off and accept were just things that they like to do. And I didn't want to end up having to cut it off altogether. So I did that at the end of last month and said, man, I'm tired of this. I mean, he went from, again, typing on his computer, not saying anything, to having some full-on discussion, debate, argument over something that's been out of public knowledge now for years. He sends me this big quote that someone said, like, man, I already knew about this. Why are you doing this? Discarded ink says, yeah, LOL, good point. Everyone ignores the local election and wants to vote for president. Yeah. Again, it goes back to how mentally skewed the attention spans are now, where you have people who will say to themselves, I don't want to vote for a governor. I just want to vote for this other person. For the executive, for the highest of the highest. I don't like that. I think all elections are of some consequence or significance. Actually, I think the reason a lot of people like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy because when you don't pay attention to your elections and you have these people who kind of just take money from big donors getting in office and screwing over the common man, you make it where the common man can't benefit from the votes of the election because you don't pay attention to your own campaign finance laws. So they end up becoming the puppets of those at the top to screw over the little man or the common guy. Okay, the music fiend says the internet may give rise to different views of thought, but it is still hammered by the same propaganda given by salesmen and con artists. The general public will only see the surface level and never touch on the nuances of the subject. That is how things remain stagnant in societal decay. Yeah, I mentioned this earlier with the thing with how people are trying to make it seem like because you have a certain ideology, you can't have fulfilling relationships. And I keep trying to explain, go look up the Southern Manifesto. That document, most of its signers were married. So I don't buy it. But they try to make on the surface seems like, yeah, if you have this viewpoint, yeah, you're not going to be liked by people. No. Okay, CP says, I'm an atheist too, but I don't think it is cool to harass or make personal attacks on people who subscribe to religion. No, I'm not. Okay, I don't know who you're addressing, but I see myself as a new Catholic, let's put it that way, a radical one that actually thinks we need to solve our issues with things that we can actually see. That doesn't mind the fact that people don't understand that a sky deity or praying to one is might not be as effective as actually doing things that are substantive. But what I am saying is that in all the circumstances with people with religion that I've known, I always just let them be. When I was talking to this Muslim woman, I never told her religion bothered me. I accepted the fact that she had that religion. It just didn't, it was never, it was something she made the forefront in the bigger picture of the issue. So it was a reverse. I accepted everything about that. The music fiend that says, funniest part is that the local election is the one election where you matter the most without having to campaign for anything. Yeah. The music fiend says, commies marry commies, Nazis marry Nazis, such a boring practice. Yeah, but if you ask a lot of people who are calling themselves sticking up for, the relationship model today about what the philosophy behind communism is, they would go, oh. You're going to notice, man, the majority of the commenters who call themselves arguing against whatever is being said on a stream of mine or a stream that is somewhere else are not actually that savvy on most things. They think they're sophisticated on romance because I guess they got maybe 2 or 3 dates, or at least they claim they have, and they call themselves, being skilled in this one area. So I don't buy it. It was like when I had that one teacher that called themselves being educated on this religion, not religion, on this what do you call it, language that I know they didn't speak as a child or until they went to school for it. I asked them what plane, the word plane, what that was in their English, in their language, and they couldn't. They told me look it up on your own time. And the second they said that to me, I knew they weren't that sophisticated on their subject because plane is a very common word. It's a utility. It's something that people have used more and more with each passing year, or decade at least. So I know that when someone can't tell me what exactly this word, this very basic word means, it discredits them in my eyes, and really it served to make me think that person just memorized some stuff in the book, took some tests in school, and now they're boom, they're a certified official on this subject because they have some papers. It's a little random call. No, it's just really amusing. I hate the fact that you have people who come in the comment sections doing stuff like that where they try to attack all the people and at the same time want you to hear out what they have to say, because I very quickly was going to make light of that account doing it earlier, but I didn't want to come off as just instantly slamming something off and go, oh yeah, that's it, it's over, man, can't speak anymore. So that was my main area of concern. So I've had users who will say one or two things and then just, well, music fiend, it's not about having a degree. It's the fact that, I've had teachers and instructors that mainly in fields of history and science, if you talk to them, they know what they're talking about. No, I'm saying that when you speak to them, you know that the subject that they are discussing, they have expertise, and you can ask them a question that's not in that book, and they'll answer you on it. I had a teacher that was talking about history and Quakers, and I was like, oh, Nixon was a Quaker, and he started discussing, his upbringing in Yorba Linda, and I was shocked. I said, wow, an instructor that actually is, capable on this topic outside of the book. What a refreshment. So I'm not opposed to I think higher education isn't an issue. I'm just okay. I had a social studies teacher in ninth grade who didn't know the Onion was satire, and the article was a whale washing up on the desert. Well, even then, he's okay. That's not the most smartest of moves, but if they knew the rest of their subject material, I'll give them a pass. You'll make all kinds of mistakes. But yeah, I'm just saying I have no opposition to higher education. I think that while there have been cases of people just getting a paper and oh look I have a paper, it's still something that is a problem. CP says higher education is important. I want my doctor to be college educated. Yeah, no, I'm not shooting it down. That's what Music Fiend said earlier. I didn't agree with him. I was admitting that there are cases where it feels like a lot of people just do end up getting a piece of paper or just have a piece of paper. But those tend to be in subjects that I'm not going to get I don't want to offend anybody. So I don't want anyone to go and say, "What are you talking about me?" Okay, Discarding says, "I believe God is the math formula of reality, and that on a quantum level and a religion are the same and true anagram, but it's a lot to explain. Think about it all consciously, really." CP says a lot of people get useless degrees. I agree. No, it's funny how they try to make it seem as if you know there are certain careers we associate with loads of money. You lawyers, uh, doctors, whatever. But when you have someone that is going to school for fashion, unless their stuff is being worn by those top dog celebrities, which is very rare, they're not going anywhere with that degree. They're going to mama's house, mommy and daddy's house, and they know that. Envoy says, well, if you look at Islam, they all stem from the same belief. The Music Fiend says, I love listening to lectures. I've had days where the entire class was me having a back and forth with the teacher. I ask him countless interesting questions and they passionately answer. Um, Believing in one deity and there's prophets that occurs throughout these religions. CP says sometimes trade schools are best. No, I'm not opposed to those either. Uh, I just hate the fact that it feels like, and you'll notice this if you've ever interacted with or seen people interact with their parents. It's like they're so open to the idea of someone else's kid going to a trade school or somewhere that's not a traditional place or just working a job, and then if it's yours, they'll get all antsy about you better go to school. I've seen that so many times. I mean, I personally never had another idea about it, but people have actually been lambasted for that. The Music Fiend says I was always baffled when my classmates didn't care about anything that was being taught. Um, well, again, it all goes back to what is being. I mean, if I could describe my own history classes, I'll never get over having a quiet period where we're supposed to be reading this book, and then some kid plays uh, some sound of a guy laughing on his phone or making some dumb noise and just bursts out laughing himself afterward, and the whole class reacting to that and looking over on the other side of the room. It was never anything I could take seriously because the people in there, bar the teacher and maybe two or three students, never showed their serious concern for wanting to learn anything. I will never sit up in a class about basketball and I can't walk out there and tell you the biggest players. Just you know, that's when schools start feeling like they're just places to babysit. That's why I can never take any of these people seriously because I've seen them in classes I've been in just sit around and not do anything other than play on their phone and cause trouble, make dumb noises in the background, and gossip about somebody. Well, again, it's not about not having fun or being amused by something, but if you're not going to take in any of the information, what's the point? Especially when you just cause more trouble for the teacher because it can get to be a headache dealing with students and rules not being abided by. I had a teacher who gave everyone a syllabus, and it said you better you better not have this. What was it? Some kind of you better not pull your phone out during class. And then I think it was maybe 2 or 3 weeks into the semester, this student's phone goes off, and he's like, "I could have sworn I gave you a document saying that you couldn't have your phone. I could have sworn I did." And he did. She just didn't care. She was totally uncharismatic to that idea. It's really sad because it basically says that you can stipulate the rules of something, and no matter how far you make it or how clear you make it, you will have people who go out of their way to disobey. Like when I was talking about doing my little reform thing for how I thought you could fix some of these, children born to these impoverished and messed up, not thinking past next week families. One of the problems I had was, wondering whether or not people were going to hold that over and seriously pay attention to this idea. And even though I still plan to unveil this proposal the next couple of weeks, I don't want it to turn into some kind of sideshow where I do a live stream and everybody, we have another circumstance of, a bunch of users being having their character assassinated, and another user being sexually harassed, and another one is being told that he's a virgin daddy. None of that is desirable. Okay, discarded ink says school's a rough thing. I know that. VVS has reared his head after disappearing. Yeah, he was very sad. No, that was CP. That wasn't a troll. That was the relationship guru. He gave so much good advice. That man was totally accurate about everything. Now everyone in here is going to come back with success stories by taking his claims to heart. Always says school is so rough because of going through puberty and individuals trying to find themselves, the pressure of starting the journey we call life, etc., etc. BBS nods his head in agreement. Discarded ink says that's all a matter of perspective. You say consciousness and illusion is just your level of perception. Perception really. Music fiend says I just had a conversation with my little sister about growing up and what to expect. Yeah. Music fiend says I warned her about school and the personality showing counter. Yeah, I can see that. I did in a joking way though, so she's not terrified. That sounds about right. People don't really take anything seriously anymore. I mean, I know if I start talking about the oligarchy of American politics from on both the national and statewide level, so many people will run out of this stream in a heartbeat. There are certain do's and don'ts on these things now. You guys are having a big discussion about school. I don't know, discarded. I'm not that convinced after seeing all these comments going back and forth. Just quickly address the school thing. I think when you have it's very simple in what it wants to do, but it gets messed up by the social interaction part of it, and people have this thing where they act like just being around other people automatically is good. Um, like you have so many people who say that person by themselves, something is wrong. But if you know they're going around and being having their character assassinated by people around them, of what good are those new interactions? Music theme was a nerd in disguise. He pulled off that Decepticon logo, and you heard. So he was exposed. No, I don't know what to really divest onto the oligarch thing because people, I was kind of stunned how much they'll be so turned off by anything that has to do with current events, especially when it's presented. And I think one of its most honest ways was just to say that both parties are participating in it. It's sad. I don't know, it's just a really strange circumstance of having people tell you over and over again how great relationships, both platonic and romantic, can be, and then having people that you know directly and those you choose to interact with online prove to be the reverse, where they've given you more annoyance and frustration than anything else. You know, I oftentimes I had with people. I was trying to figure out, what goes wrong during these interactions. I realized that in a lot of cases, people will just abruptly stop responding. I'll call myself trying to keep it going. So, screw it.